Yes, that one actually.
Where's mine? I'm on. I do exercises 5 times a day.
On my stomach with my arms and
Councillor Bill, when he's
it
here.
works. Yeah, she's just.
I believe we are live now. We might commence. We'll get through some of the process stuff while Councillor Milne returns. Here we go. Welcome everyone to our ordinary meeting today. I'll hand over to Councillor Polly for the acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of our fellow councillors, just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians and owners of this land, the Kabi Kabi people, on which this event is taking place. We just want to acknowledge the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people and their ongoing connection to land, sea and community. Paying our respect to elders past, present and emerging, and we also extend that respect to all those watching online. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now hand over to Chachi Joseph from the Anglican Church, just to pass on a few words of wisdom and then lead us in prayer before a minute's silence.
All right, this morning I got up and then I was looking for some words of wisdom, so I sat with a cup of coffee and then something that came to my mind today. Now, true culture, true wisdom is not based on what degrees we have, or how much of wealth we have, or how many famous followers we may have. They are all very, very cheap, superficial stuffs. True wealth, true wisdom is the capacity to see every living being with an equal vision. This is a universal principle. The first and great commandment of the Western religious tradition. A lawyer came to Jesus and asked him, which is the greatest of the commandments in the law, and Jesus said to him, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself. Everyone is our neighbor. Whatever our religion, whatever our race, whatever our nationality, sex or social status, we are all neighbors. So when we understand the sanctity of who we are, we understand the sanctity of the heart of life. Life is sacred. And if we can't understand the sacredness of our own life, we can't recognize it in others. That not only includes humanity, but also animals, birds, trees, and every living beings in it. So we cannot love God without loving everything that comes from God. Let's pray. Lord, our loving Father, we thank you for this special time as we gather together. I pray for wisdom and knowledge and understanding in this group, that whatever decisions and deliberations they make today, they understand that each person in this room is sacred and that they respect the sacredness of others, and the decisions and the deliberations they have and they make today, always aware of the heart of life, the preciousness that we are all neighbors. Amen.
We'll rise for 1 minute of silence to remember the deceased residents of our region. Thank you.
that two?
Shall we guess? Any disclosures of interest, councillors? No. Apologies for leave of absence. Yet we have a section 3 there, confirmation of minutes. 2 recommendations there before us. First recommendation relates to the ordinary meeting on the 20th of April 2023. Is there someone to move? Councillor Smurden, someone to second. Councillor Polly, all those in favour? Against? Carried. And recommendation 2 in relation to the special meeting. Is there someone to move? Councillor Smurden, someone to second. Councillor Stewart, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. There are no petitions before us today. Section 5, item 5.1, ordinary meeting action report for quarter 3. I'll hand over to Mr. Lewis and Ms. Touch.
Morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. This item is the quarterly action report for quarter 3. I will take the report as being read. There are 6 items which are pending. Are there any questions in relation to those items or any other questions on actions?
Any questions, councillors? Okay.
Sorry, can you just give me a second?
Have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move. Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Milne, Councillor Stewart to speak.
Mr Mayor, I guess there's always times when things don't happen quite as quick as we would like, and this just explains where different actions are at, including things like future sports ground and the Tin Bay public pool and so on. So thank you for the information and updates.
Councillor Milne.
Just following from Councillor Stewart, it is good to just understand where we are with our actions that we do and provide as a direction from councillors. So, yeah, thank you for the report, and I'm happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Are there any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.1, 23-24 fees and charges. I'll hand over to you, Mr. Lewis and Ms. Satherall.
Good morning, councillors.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. The report in front of you is part of our annual budget preparation. We've brought the draft fees and charges to you for your input and consideration, and this report is asking you to consider adopting the attached document.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly.
The Mayor, I suppose the question's almost to you or the CEO. This is just the finished product here. Is the public allowed to know the generally average percentage increase that has been applied? Because I know some are up and some are down, but generally, was there a general rule applied to this at all, that they're actually allowed to?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there are a number of fees that have to reflect the cost of actually performing that duty. Those fees, the cost is reflective of what the average cost is to do that service. CPI was running at about 6.8%, but council endeavoured to keep any average rise to 5% for the fees and charges. So those that are not fee for service and are not benchmarked across other councils, we've tried to make sure that the fee is 5%.
So less than CPI.
Yep. Thanks.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Deborah.
Thank you. I've got a number, so I hope everyone's brought a drink, gone to the bathroom. Right. Now, we were sent out
an agenda which has since been updated. I unfortunately still operating on the old one, so some of these questions might just be really quick. No, that's not a thing. The ARC. Is it still 2 adults, 2 children for 3 children for a family pass?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we might refer any questions on fees and charges to the relevant director to answer directly, as they're ultimately responsible for those fees
Thank you.
and charges.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the ARC falls in my portfolio. At the present time, I'm not understanding or not aware of any changes to the conditions that haven't been reported, so it should still be the same as it was last year, which is 2 and 3.
That's good. In what we originally got, it said the other. Can I please ask the fees and charges for the ARC, the entrance fee? Council doesn't get that money; that goes to Belgravia.
Through you, Mr Mayor, all revenue for the operations of the ARC go to Belgravia under the contract that we awarded a couple of years ago now.
However, it's up to council to set the price. Is that right?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the contract requires council to set the fees and charges for all council services, and as such, the ARC provides a contracted service for the swimming pool is a contracted service. It's still a council service. It's just provided by another person, so we set the fee and charge for that. There are 1 or 2, and if you ask me questions on them, I would have to take it under notice. Fees and charges that are in the contract that they are allowed to set, that are specifically related to non-core services that they choose to provide.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, do we have to increase the cost every year? Are we obligated? Because it does say here that council's able to determine the fees and charges, so I'm just wondering.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's a really interesting question. I would have to take that on notice, but I believe that we have to consider a CPI increase every year. The simple answer would be no, I don't believe we do have to. However, that may cause contract variations and complications with Belgravia, and I have to take that under notice and review that particular clause of the contract, because I'm not that familiar with that particular element of the contract.
Thank you.
Belgravia would have a condition in the contract that allowed for CPI increases, otherwise they'd be
That's correct,
signing
Mr.
the
Mayor.
contract now, and if it's a 3-year deal, then they would, either have to have a lot of fat at the front end to incorporate, which means we would be effectively paying more for the service than what we needed to cover, increases in cost at the back end.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's how I would have taken it, but without having the document and being able to check, it's very difficult for me to confirm that categorically in this forum.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got questions for Mayor Hartwig. When it comes to community halls like the Pavilion, for example, we've got in here 35%, I think, off the fee. There was discussion about, when it comes to community halls, the value of, to the community, of community events and them being used for those sorts of things, and looking at ways we can bring those fees down for the community. Otherwise, we've got a building sitting there doing nothing for a long time when it could be active for the community. How far did we...
We've had a grant process in place for a while now. I believe, is it up to 2,500? I think it was 1,500, and council said we thought it should be 2,500.
Yep.
So these groups have and currently apply for that grant funding to cover the cost.
Wonderful.
And
thank you.
Through Mr Mayor, the CEO also has delegation to waive any fees and charges as he sees fit.
Thank you very much. I think that's important for the community to understand that the option's there. When it comes to community events and that sort of thing, the Pavilion, we'll use it as an example. Staff that are there during an event, because I believe that's one of our expenses, isn't it?
Mr Mayor, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Pavilions in my portfolio as well, Councillor.
Yes, I know, that's why I'm going there. Is that... I'm just wondering, is that time in lieu, or is it overtime, or is it a flexible hour?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it actually depends very much on the operation. Sometimes we bring in casual staff specifically for the event, so it's just flat rate. Sometimes if an event or a clean-up runs over, there might be a time in lieu arrangement agreed. And on very rare occasions, there are some overtime payments made, but it's more of a rarity than a regular.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's important for the public to know that there is an expense for council when it comes to those places, even for community groups. So that's
through you, Mr Mayor, when we get a request for the CEO to waive fees, we often consider that waiving, but we consider the external cost to council or any additional costs. So we wouldn't normally waive a fee that would discount an activity below a cost where council would have to pay out money.
And that's fair enough. Thank you very much. Sorry about this. I'm just going to do a quick flick through. Just while I've got you there, your staff at the pavilion are excellent.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
share that with them. A number of staff do watch these meetings, but I will share that.
Right. Sorry, everyone. Actually, no, I think that might do us. Thank you very much. That'll do me.
We might need to move on, Councillor Devereux. Yeah.
I just said that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move. Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Milne, Councillor Stewart to speak.
These services are a large cost to council and to the community as a whole, and so we need to recover those costs one way or another, and fees and charges are a fair way of doing that, since people using them are the ones who will be paying for the services. So as much as I'd like to do things for free, we've got to charge, so I'm willing to move that we
Councillor Milne.
Yeah, fees and charges of the services that we provide to the community are necessary to run the council. I did note there was a media release of $8.6 million projected income. It's only $500,000 projected income from what was projected last year. So, I mean, I did some of the maths. It's like only 6.17% or something like that. So it is well below the CPI. I think we are trying to be reasonable with these fees and charges, understanding the conditions that our community is actually in at the moment. So while increases aren't desired by anybody, they are necessary. So I think this is a reasonable document and a reasonable setting of fees and charges. Happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devereux.
Thank you, Mayor Hartley. I'm just going to read this out. I had an inquiry online and I think my answer was pretty good. So I'm going to read it. Okay, so yes, fees and charges going up, and we'll probably, with luck, bring in money for our council organisation, what is essentially a fee for service basis. It probably won't affect most residents in any significant way. Parks and gardens, still free. Library, still free. Art gallery, still free. Greenways, Mary Street events, dog parks, that's all paid for with our rates. The small increases in tip fees, for people that are doing a spring clean and they can't fit it in, that's just a reasonable increase, reasonable fee. Of the 55,000 residents in our region, plus or minus, most will be hard pressed after a year to say they've spent an extra $10 on a line item in the fees and charges. But if someone wants to subdivide their land into 12 blocks and sell them off, then yes, they're going to pay enough to cover council organisations' expenses, which is reasonable, both now and towards upgrading infrastructure down the track when the population growth from people living on these carved up blocks of land, which the developers make nice coin on, mean we need to, for example, we need more substantial waste treatment plants. So fees and charges aren't unreasonable. And the increases, although it seems like a lot, most people won't even notice. So thank you.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Against? Carried, thank you. Item 6.2, the 23-24 revenue policy. I'll hand over to Mr Lewis. Ms Hatherall again.
Through you, Mr Mayor, this is another part of our annual budget process. As part of our obligations under the local government regulation, there is a suite of documents that we have to produce and present to council as part of the budget process. The revenue policy sets out a number of obligations detailing how we can make and levy rates, how we determine the purpose of land use. All of the details behind this document are in what's called the revenue statement, which will be presented to you as part of the actual budget workshop. This policy has been updated. It's part of our statutory obligations and it's presented to you for your consideration as part of that annual budget process.
Any questions, councillors?
Yeah.
Councillor Deborah.
Thank you very much. Again, this might be an old document. Did we fix up, it's got a supersedes date on the 30th of June 2024. Would that be correct or?
We'll be updating those headers and footers as if council endorse this.
Thank you very much. When it comes to, through the Mayor, looking at our ratepayers experience financial hardship section, when it comes to banks and most utilities and so forth, it's a very easy thing these days to be able to get some sort of an extension and so forth. The financial hardship we've got here talks about written applications and so forth. Has any, these people, obviously if you're going for that, you're already under some stress. Has any thought been given to making it an easier process? Because if it's just an extension or something like that, should be a fairly easy thing, I would have thought.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the hardship policy will come as part of the budget adoption meeting. We encourage any residents who are experiencing hardship to contact us because we will put in place either a short-term or a long-term payment plan to try and assist them during that period. The hardship policy itself is perhaps the next level up, but we certainly encourage residents who are in difficulties to contact us so we can put in place payment arrangements for them to assist them.
Yeah, I'd just like to double down on that, and as soon as possible, rather than leaving it till it's too late.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the revenue policy is a broad overarching document. It's a statutory requirement, but it basically sets the parameters for our other policies and procedures, in particular the revenue statement, as Ms Hatherall has indicated, the hardship policy. So we will be workshopping those policies with council as part of the budget workshops. So that would be an opportunity for council to change any policy settings if it wishes to do so in the hardship space.
That's good. I just mentioned because it's in the policy, it's part of something that council can refer to say, no, it's got to be like this. So I just...
And just through you, Mr Mayor, the uptake of payment plans, both short and long-term payment plans, has increased significantly probably in the last 3 years. So the staff are trying to assist those people. So there has been a greater number of payment plans. I
would suggest it would perhaps be getting a lot more than that now that the economy's going away.
So, through yourself, Chair, if I understand your question correctly, I think you'll be given a chance to look at it. But I think written could be something as simple as an email, so that would allow that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor Pollard.
So, just picking up on what Mr Lewis said about it being an overarching policy, which I get is a high level thing, there's no specifics in there. But then I noticed in the interest on arrears, it says that if people are late, council will therefore impose a maximum rate of interest. So that just didn't seem to have a lot of wiggle room. So, because it's going to come back to us, what if we as a council decide we don't want to give them the maximum, we want to give a couple of percent less, but it doesn't give us any movement there?
So through council's revenue statement, it sets the fees and charges it will apply to, say, interest. State government sets a ceiling each financial year that we can charge to. So the policy position in that document indicates that we will charge the maximum, so that people in arrears aren't a financial burden on the balance of ratepayers who are paying on time.
Right, but yes, I'm saying there's no wiggle room there for us to go, we would like that to be a couple of percent less if we decided to, because the policy says we will charge the maximum that the state government set.
Can I extend on that then? Is that all right?
Yeah, so.
What do other councils do?
Most other councils charge the maximum. It's merely a default position across local authorities in Queensland.
What is that rate?
It's about, I think last year it was about 8%.
Yep.
And I think it will
It
come
will
down
increase.
this year, or it may go up, and we're not sure how the government will determine this position, but
We're expecting that it might rise. Through you, Mr Mayor, 10 years ago, the interest rate was 11%. It's dropped down and hovered around 7 or 8%, but it did go up last year by a couple of percentage points. So we're waiting to see what the state government tell us.
Any other questions? Councillor Deborah?
Thank you. I'll just end with that, and then I'll go on to my question, because I'm not sure exactly where you're going with it, but I think I know.
I was actually asking, clarifying, so I'd almost want to go, if the rest of the council were okay with it, could that be changed to that we will impose up to a maximum rate? Because there's no flexibility.
Yeah. I'd be much
at
more
all.
comfortable with that.
I'm happy to go to the max, or at least have the opportunity to up to, but that would require a change.
Mr Mayor, we'd be comfortable with that change, but then council would have to make a decision when it adopts its revenue statement.
Yes.
It's the revenue statement is the final position or policy position that council, and once it makes that or adopts that revenue statement, it can't change that for the financial year.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to have the flexibility to make that decision. At the moment, there is no choice. It's the maximum, whether we want to or not. That was all. And I understand we've still got to approve the actual policy at the rate at the end of the day. So I don't know if that's changeable or how. I don't know how to do that. It's just
We can adopt a recommendation.
yeah. Other people might have
As per the discussion here.
Because I do think, given the economic situation at the moment, and things are only going to get worse for the next little while, it would be nice to be able to at least consider the people that in our community that are going through the most hardship. So
The challenge and the balance, and probably why council has deferred to the state, is when if you don't have a disparity, let's say we set the rate at 3%, then people will go, well, I won't pay the rates. I'm better off putting that money on my mortgage because I can actually make a couple of percent per year on it. So we've got to be careful when we go into this territory that we're not creating an issue for ourselves and more workload for ourselves, and that the rate is actually, encourages people to get on a payment plan and work through it. Councillor Mill?
Mr Mayor, I'm just trying to remember and I can't, so I'm just going to ask the question. When we go into, say, a hardship payment arrangement, there's something to do with the percentage applied to it. Is there when they do make the arrangement, is it something that's laxed or it's lessened? I can't remember.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have at times looked at having no interest applied to some of the short-term payment plans. So council has the ability to make a decision about what they want to do with interest for different payment plans.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that position is classed as a concession by council, and we have to bring any of those policy positions back to council for endorsement at an individual basis.
Any other questions, councillor? Councillor Deborah?
thank you very much. Through the Mayor, all through the policy it's got the word council, capital C, and I'm a little bit confused as to whether we're talking about elected council or the council organisation, and there's a section where I'm thinking we're talking about both separately within two sentences. Is there any thought given to clarifying that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe council with a capital C refers to this body, whereas council with a lowercase refers to the organisation.
So what we could do is we'll make sure we review the document to make sure that that's a consistent application.
Okay, could we put that in definitions then?
Yep.
And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, councillors? Capital C?
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh,
my,
beautiful.
Was my other thing meant something to be voted on now or change, or is this going to come back to us, or we're voting on it now?
I believe we can vote on it with the understanding that the matters that have been raised and agreed to from the group will be amended as part of the adoption.
Just to confirm, it's the up to amount?
Up to amount, yes.
We'll confirm council and his definition in.
And recommendation.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, I think this is a policy document. I think we have to bring this report back to a meeting in June for formal adoption by council.
It'd be even neater, more clear.
Is that a timing issue? Sorry.
No.
No.
That's fine.
Okay, well then this matter will,
I move we lay the matter on the table.
We have to either adopt it or not.
Councillor Stewart's going to lay.
someone to move that lay on the table, councillor Stewart. Do we need to speak on this? No? I think we're all those in favour that this matter lay on the table? Against? Carried. Next item 6.3, the financial report for April 23. I'll hand over again to Ms. Haverall and Mr. Lewis.
Mr Mayor and councillors, this is our monthly report for our financial position for council up to the end of April. At the moment, council is tracking operationally slightly behind where we thought we forecast we would be. We, as part of the federal government budget, there was some discussion about the general purpose grant that we received from the federal government. There was an indication in the document that we would receive our prepayment as we normally do, but we haven't received that as yet. Last financial year, I think we received it in April. It can turn up anywhere between April, May or June. So that's probably the major impact of why overall we're behind with our operational. The total position of council, we're still tracking ahead of where we thought we would be. Our cash balance is still considerably higher than the previous year, but more than half of that is constrained because of various grant funding, infrastructure charges, and some internal constraints. Apart from that, I'll take the report as read, and if you've got any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart?
Mr Mayor, I note that we sold a couple of properties at auction for rate arrears. One was passed in. Why was it passed in?
Through you, Mr Mayor, at the auctions for those outstanding rates properties, we set the reserve at either the outstanding balance of rates or the value, unimproved value of the property. That particular parcel did not reach the reserve, so it was passed in as part of the auction process. Negotiations after the auction didn't resolve a disposal of that property, so we now offer it through real estate agents for sale as an expression of interest, the tender process. So at the moment, that's where we are with that particular property.
I just wonder whether sometimes you're better off just selling it anyway, and even if it's below reserve, because that's what the market suggests. But
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Deborah?
Thank you. All right. Just got here. If you could please explain with the impact of the recently endorsed certified agreement, including the related payback. I specifically asked in the budget if we'd allowed for that, so I was surprised to see it come up as a figure of 2.6 million primarily relating to that. Can I just have an explanation of where that went wrong?
It's more or less the timing of where we put the budget when the payment is being made. So there was a lump sum payment, and it was the back pay up until that February date.
We always expected that.
We expected it, but we had to quantify the amount, and that wasn't actually quantified, like the calculation of the back pay plus the impact to the superannuation and annual leave balances hadn't been truly apportioned over the whole of the year. So it was included as part of our budget review, but we now have to look at the budget phasing to get that right, and it should be corrected by the end of the financial year.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So that's it. Exactly the answer I wanted, actually, without knowing that that's what I wanted. We've got here that we've got a positive variance for resource recovery, waste, increased revenue in relation to disposal of waste management. That's a bit of, and the same with water sales. They're a bit of a double-edged sword, aren't they?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, yes, there are increased expenditure items that relate to those increasing revenue streams.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think what you're alluding to, Councillor Devereux, is the fact that we're actually consuming more of our space because we're receiving more waste to be disposed of at the facility, and also we're using more water. So there is that double-edged sword. So whilst the revenue is increased, there is the impact of it. It's not always monetary, it's the impact of our airspace at the dump and also the availability of water supplies.
Thank you. With the quarry sale, that's talking about like figures within our organisation, isn't it?
Yes.
The other one that I've got is under statement of financial position, and it says the improvement in equity. Now, isn't that going to have a negative impact for the organisation as well, financially?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the equity in the organisation has increased. So accountants like to complicate things with debits and credits, but essentially the assets in our organisation have increased over and above the liabilities by more than what the asset value was and the liability value was last year. So it's a good thing for the organisation because ultimately at the bottom line we're worth more.
However, the negative side of that is?
The negative side of that is, I'm not sure,
maybe depreciation increases, so it increases your operating costs.
Yeah. So that then is OPEX, is that?
Yes, that's right. So we incur, if it flows through and we haven't made the provisions for that depreciation, then it flows through to our operating position, which would increase our operating expenditure.
So there's an
impact on our net position.
So there's a risk of that pushing us into the red. Would that be right?
Potentially,
it's going to be a higher.
If you don't mitigate in other ways, yes.
So essentially, getting at these a lot of these assets don't produce income; they just produce costs. But they can't count as assets, but they're not assets in terms of business sense.
Yeah. So it's hard to see it as an improvement when it's just going to be a cost to us.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's interesting because the part of the contribution to that increase in equity is the higher cash balance. They're perhaps higher debtors balance, less creditors balance, less provisions for employee entitlement. There's all sorts of levers in this. It wasn't just the assets that contributed to it.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux?
Yeah, I did ask everyone to have a drink, go to the bathroom. Now, if we just come to operating expenditure, and we've got increased requirement for externally provided activities as a result of the current staff vacancies. So my question is, it's obviously saying that there's a higher expense with external to internal, and yet in the past when we look at something like and I'm just thinking of the ARC, for example, we were told the exact opposite. So I'm just getting some mixed messages over the last few years.
We had a number of the external arrangements that have contributed to the materials and services is on the back of the floodworks. So there were vacancies across council and works needed to be done, so we've engaged various plant operators to try and help us with that recovery in those initial few months. Because the May event was towards the end of the last financial year, and obviously the additional work was still happening in the first part of this year. So that has contributed. We've had to still deliver services, and we haven't had staff internally to be able to deliver those particular services.
Through Mr Mayor, if we refer back to the ARC, that is the case that those people that are engaged through the ARC have a lower cost base than if they were in council, mainly due to the variances between the certified agreements that are in place. What we're talking about here is when we're bringing in short-term placements and we're paying agency fees on top of our normal cost structures to have those people operating within our establishment.
Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation there before us. Is it someone to move? Councillor Polly, someone to second? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly to speak.
No, just to thank the staff for keeping us up to date and where things are at. Interesting to see next month's report. Looking forward to it.
Councillor Stewart.
So yeah, it's nice to see that. While it may not have been as nice a month as some previous ones, there's reasons behind that which we understand, and we're basically travelling okay at the moment.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? The other speakers for. Councillor Polly to close.
So nothing further to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.4, Corporate Services Directorate update.
Through Mr Mayor, this report gives a summary of the activities of the Corporate Services Directorate over the last 3 months. I'm happy to take the report as read, but would like to make a few comments if I may. In relation to the 23-24 budget, Council remains on track to adopt the budget by the end of July. Rates notices were issued for outstanding assessments in March. The much anticipated service catalogue project has been presented to the executive team, and we're expecting a report to come to council in relation to that body of work in June. We've also commenced a strategic review of our procurement processes to see if we can expedite some of our internal processes to make us more efficient and tackle some of the issues we will face with the delivery of a significant body of work in the 23-24 financial year. We've also commenced an urgent review of our fleet requirements that will be aligned to our future capital works programs. We're expecting that body of work to be completed in July. It has commenced. It commenced in May this year. ICT have been relatively busy. Our focus remains predominantly on cyber security, and we've delivered a cyber security awareness training to all staff and to councillors that not only benefit the organisation but also benefit individuals in their private lives. We've engaged, or we've undertaken, a print imaging service, and we're expecting that to roll out in June 23. In relation to CCTV, we're currently undertaking phase 1B and the projects that we're undertaking and are anticipating to be completed by the 30th of June are itemised on page 21, and we're also have commenced detailed planning on phase 1C with those projects or locations also listed. We've also started a process of BYOD within council, so that allows council officers to bring their own phones to work and for council to pay a small fee for the use of those devices for our corporate applications. The advantage there is that as we move into our new ERP, we'll be expecting more and more people to use their phones for work-related purposes, things like leave approvals, purchase approvals and things like that. So will significantly increase the efficiency of the organisation. Excitingly, in relation to GRIT, or the ERP project, we had our first rollout on the 20th of April for EFT Shore, which basically secures the payments for our creditors, and we're proceeding with the release of 1A, which is financials, the GL or the general ledger and bank reconciliations, and the first stages of ECM. We're anticipating that will go live towards the end of May, early June at this juncture. In relation to people and HR, Our head count at the 31st of March was 491. That's against establishment of 534. So we're still maintaining a significant number of vacancies at this juncture. We're also working through the outstanding issues with the current certified agreement and gradually implementing those into our payroll systems. So as a further update to the vacancies at the 11th of May, and I do apologise for the dating of some of these, this information. It's our current systems are fairly inhibitive in how we can extract information. But anyway, at the 11th of May, we had 71 vacancies across council. In relation to our staff development, we've also commenced Cert 4 in leadership and management for our lower level coordinators, and also an Ignite program for staff development for managers, supervisors and team leaders. So that both of those programs have been positively received. Happy to take the report as read.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hartwig. Thank you for summarising that out loud. I think it's important for residents to be able to hear that, because I can't imagine many of them go on and actually read what's in these reports.
Oh, it's only 200 pages.
Yes. I'd like to start, if I could, with CCTV. Now, we got funding for $500,000, we're putting in $500,000 bucks all up, and that will be 100 cameras, is that correct? What's the figure there?
I'd have to take that on notice, but I don't think it would be that quantum. It would be...
I assume because we had 100 and not many were working on replacing.
No, we had 103, I think, and about roughly 10% of those were working. The new bodies of the new quantity or the quality of the cameras we've got now, so one camera may be able to replace about 4 or 5 cameras. So I'm not exactly sure of the exact numbers, so I'm happy to take it on notice, present back to council.
Thank you very much. I was a bit confused, if you could explain about why we're putting cameras in front of state operations like the police station. I would have thought that would be there.
We undertook fairly extensive consultation with both the QPS and our internal stakeholders, and these were the lists that were agreed upon at that point in time. So
it does, like I've counted that and gone through Mary Street. I tried to get where the cameras were. I was told I couldn't have it in Mary Street, which I did think was odd, but I went through and worked out where they were, and there's a large proportion of Mary Street which doesn't seem to be covered. So it just seems odd to me that as a local council we would prioritise state when they can afford their own over locals. So
I guess we've tried to prioritise, the risk to the wider community, and our partners in the QPS felt that was an appropriate location.
But they do have their own budgets. I will just say that Mary Street at the moment is having a real hard time with petty crime and so forth, and worse. So I really would have preferred if the priority was our local businesses.
Through Mr Mayor, before we commence maybe phase 1C, we could bring back the listing of sites to council for further consideration of alternative sites.
I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I do, if I could just, and this, you can stop me if you want, it is a slight variation. Just with the CCTV, why can't we say where the cameras are? Because prevention's better than cure. And part of a camera is that people see it, so they know it's there.
I think what happens in those circumstances is you simply shift issues to another area where there isn't a camera. So if people don't know where the camera is, they make the assumption that they may or may not be being viewed. Where they know it is, they'll simply move their activity to a place where they know their camera isn't.
Well, we were told by a senior police officer that cameras do always change behaviours. So yeah, there is that. I do think it's odd because it's come back to me that the police don't have a problem with us doing it. So that's a decision that obviously the council's made, not police. Okay, let's move on. BYOD, which is bring your own device. You were talking about that. I think it's an excellent initiative. Of course, you won't be able to complain about staff on their phones once this is widespread. I have actually put this in an email. I would like to see it extended to councillors. I think if it's going to save money with the organisation, there's obviously a chance to save money with councillors as well. And I certainly would appreciate only having one device that I have to drop.
I think with councillors it comes down to timing, and we get issued our iPads and our phones at the start of the term, and I would believe that there would be a change to our policy to allow that for the next term.
And I'm more than happy for it to be the next term of council. We have to look forward to what's going to happen once this council is no longer and the new council steps in.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we're going to bring back the council reimbursement policy as part of the budget adoption. So that may be an opportune time for council to explore whether it wants to come into that space or not.
Councillor Milne.
Mr Mayor, it's just more of a governance probably question. I don't need an answer. I was just potentially raising for future consideration. But it's about having our own devices, and we are obviously exposed to sensitive information and also contacts and things like that. So my question would be, for consideration for something else not to be brought back, is that type of legislation on having separate devices. Is why I assumed we always had separate devices.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the way the BYOD works, it's basically your phone, and council loads apps onto the phone. So if council can't see what is happening with your phone, and likewise, the phone cannot manage what's happening in that app. So there's clear separation.
It was more about having council information that we're exposed to, and also keeping those separate lines of the councillor and personal, because we are very restricted from a different device. That was just the consideration and consideration question for later on. I'd just like that clarified, because that's one of my fears, is we are very governed on how we cross our lines between our personal and our councillor lives. I
do agree there are quite stringent regulations around how we can work in this field, but just because you may have two separate devices, if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing on your own personal device, it doesn't mean that you suddenly don't fall under the umbrella of the regulations. So having the one device, yes, you have sensitive information on that phone. It would need to be managed the same way you would manage your councillor phone, so you would need to be the only one that had access to it. Otherwise, yeah, people may be able to get that sensitive information if you have it, but that would be a consideration for each individual councillor at the time, whether they want to opt in or opt out. Well, that's part of the policy. When the policy comes back for consideration, I think it'd be like vehicles that, you can either opt in or opt out.
Yep.
Councillor Deborah?
I will just add to that point before I go on to my questions after. You do have phones these days where you can have two SIMs, essentially, so you can have separation of your personal and your business on the same device.
Thank you. Through yourself, Chair. You can have a virtual SIM as well. What we can do is, rather than consume the meeting time, I think there's some good points raised. We can look at that when we look at some of the timing that Mr. Lewis talked about.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I've got two. Just to.
How about we mix it up with Councillor Stewart, please?
Oh, no, let's go.
Okay, Councillor Deborah.
Thank you. All right, I'll go to the simple one first, which is the Tourist Information Centre that we've got at Traviston there. It just, we've been doing this since we came in, 3 years. It's been built. I don't understand why it's now taking so long. I've got sent in photos, it's got tables, it's got walls inside. It's essentially just moving brochures now, isn't it?
I think, as we're all aware, councillors, there was an initial approval under the DA some years ago to have a facility inside. the owner made a request to council to change that and build a standalone facility outside. We've only picked up the keys a couple of weeks ago, I believe, Mr. Dawn, so that has only just recently been finished. And I know that the staff are looking to progress that transition as soon as possible.
But it says we're going to do new tourist branding before we even move in. It strikes me as why put that particular cart before the horse when we can just put the horse in and work the cart out later.
Agreed.
So,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I take your point, Councillor Devereux. It's been one of these projects, it seems, that I've certainly inherited in my chair and tried to progress as quickly as we could. We have an internal commitment to be out there by early June, so there is work being undertaken at the moment to get out there. With regard to your query about the tourism branding, myself and a colleague were at a tourism function last night, and Gympie currently has 3 different types of tourism branding out in the market, and depending on which tourism operator you see, they use a different form of branding. So we see this as an opportunity just to get it right from the start, as opposed to having a whole heap of different collateral out there that is a moniker to our region.
are you including Gympie Creative, or have we got 4?
No, not that. No, separate to CAGRA. Yep.
Thank you very much. That's excellent to hear that we're looking at June. Okay, one more, if I could. Good. And I don't think this one's you. Just on the staffing. So if you could please just explain where the figures are a little bit squishy there, because we've got 71 vacancies and we've got 491, and you said 491 and 534 staff, which means we've got 43 vacancies. And if we add the 491 to the 71, we've got 562. When we came in, the figure we eventually got, because they weren't able to tell us initially, you might remember, was 505 staff. So we've gone up, even at the lowest level, by 29 staff since we've been in.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The establishment the council approved in March was 534 FTEs.
So we've gone up by 29 staff in the 3 years that we've been here.
I'm not sure what was originally.
505.
That I've noticed to see what was originally presented to council, whether it was 505.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart.
Going back to the bring your own device, on a different question to what was asked before. My concern is around the danger of staff then working out of hours and that work-life balance. I know there's times when it's council sort of 24/7, though it's not full-on 24/7, so I might send an email 7 o'clock at night and get a response straight away. I'm thinking I wasn't wanting an urgent response. We should have waited till 9 o'clock in the morning. So my concern is if staff have work stuff on their own phones, take them home, how are we going to manage that work-life balance, make sure our staff are not working when they should be spending time with people they might actually love?
Through Mr. Mayor, I guess that will come through as our policy positions, as our new manager HR develops those new policies, but it is something that we're aware of, and I believe it would be up to individual managers to make sure or ensure the welfare of their individual staff members as they're progressing in the business.
I mean, they have their own phone now, so
I know, and it concerns me.
They still have access to those emails and that sort of stuff on the weekend anyway, just having it on one phone.
The advantage to staff is that they're effectively, council's effectively paying them mobile devices for the advantage of us loading particular bits of software onto that phone. There is no expectation of those officers to answer emails or conduct council business outside of normal hours.
I imagine if I
just
could
go to Councillor Johnson first.
Is yours pertaining to this? Because mine's something totally different.
Yes.
You do yours and then I'll do mine.
I imagine staff would be given the option of, or told that they can out of office and so forth, so that they don't receive those emails until Monday if they want to.
Yeah, that will be part of our policy position that we will work out moving forward. And the BYO device is solely voluntary. We're not enforcing it at this juncture.
I'll also, I mean, I don't think staff have any problem with ignoring an email. It's fine. It's getting better. It's getting better.
Well, I think that's a bit harsh, Councillor Devereux.
I'm only speaking from my experience.
It is your experience.
Yes.
Well, we could, I don't think it's appropriate to sort of make those comments about staff. I think it's a little bit disrespectful to say that you don't find any problem with them ignoring emails. I think that's
With respect, I don't find it respectful that I send an email and it's not responded to. And that has been up until recently, very much what I get. So I do understand what you're saying. However, my experience as an elected official has been different.
But whether or not you make a comment like that in public and whether or not that's appropriate is different to what you're talking about. And we have a responsibility to treat our staff with respect.
And I do.
Just please let me finish.
It's just that when you say that, it's like you're accusing me of not.
Just let me finish. And a statement like that, I don't believe is in the spirit of how we should operate. I understand your frustration. We all have frustrations. But a comment like that, I don't think is the way we should be speaking about our staff. Councillor Jensen?
Can we wind back to EFT Shore?
Yes.
How familiar with it are you? Have you?
I'm not overly familiar, but
I've had a phone call.
I basically know what it does, and Deb may know more information.
It's just that I had a phone call from a resident who has been advised to go on this now, and she said that it asked her to log into her internet banking during the process, of which she was not game enough to do.
And whilst we would like everyone to be part of F-Shore, because the purpose of F-Shore is to try and protect people's bank account details so that we don't have that potential of fraud of someone saying, please change my bank account details. We ring the number provided and they say, yeah, it's certainly that particular bank account, it's mine. This is trying to put in place a level of surety that she is who she says she is. We don't expect everyone to want to be comfortable with F-Shore, and we have got in place procedures where she can contact us if she needs to change her bank account, if she wants to confirm it with us, so that she doesn't have to go through that process if she's unhappy. She also doesn't have to have her name and her business and all those details registered with F-Shore, because we're very conscious of the fact that she might want to keep that private.
Yeah, she absolutely did not want to do that. So what should she do?
So if she's been paid by council previously, if she wants to give us a call, and then we can walk her through what we need to make sure that we've got the right details for her and there's not a fraudulent attempt to take her details off her.
Okay, I'll catch you later for a number for her, someone for her to talk to talk her through that. Thanks. No, that was all. Thank you.
Councillor Colley?
Yes, Mr Mayor, page 27 on delegations. I just check. I see that the director's allowance has gone up to 200,000 in a panel that we didn't do. So just the question was, from what? What was it?
Through Mr Mayor, the delegation was previously 150,000. We've taken it up to the statutory limit, which is 200. It's just to try and expedite our procurement so there's not bottlenecks with the organisation. The directors will, at the end of each financial year, have to complete a statutory declaration saying that they have basically complied with all council's policies and requirements in relation to those procurements. It's basically only a 50,000 increase. It's designed to ensure that our processes improve.
That's fine. Yeah, I just didn't know what it was, and it's a state legislation to say max 200. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, through Mr. Mayor, that is a requirement where we are required to publish on our website contracts above those values.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. Is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Mill, Councillor Stewart speak.
Mr Mayor, I'm very happy with this report. I'd just like to highlight one thing, which is the Vulnerable Persons Disaster Management Forum, which a number of us went to and I think found very helpful. I know that Ms Hatch went to a lot of effort to organise a really good event, and we had some interesting negotiations with one particular person to include them, which was good. So it was good to see that mix of the professional disaster management type people, council staff, and people from the community, both from disability organisations and such like, and people with disability and so on, together to work out how to get through the next disaster. So thank you very much to staff for a great organisation, a great forum, and so I'm very happy to move this report and noting some of the great things that staff do.
Councillor Mellon.
I always enjoy these directorate updates coming to council. It is a way of getting information. I am very pleased to see about the staff empowerment that we are doing at that level, actually growing our staff from the coordinator level up. Growing good leaders is what's going to grow our organisation, so I was really, really pleased to note that. I'm probably more of a downside as the Tourist Information Centre. I'm very disappointed that we did give instructions as council to organise a lease from inside the building, but we've ended up with something outside the building, but at least we've got something. So I look forward to the guys moving into that space with our new look, unless we've got something going on out there, but it's a little bit disappointing about that process, but hey, it's all moving forward. But other than that, everything's in there. Do encourage everyone to read these updates, and I would have loved to have them published on the website, because I mean a lot of effort goes into this, but hey, we'll move forward and hopefully that comes in the future. But yeah, happy to second that we note these updates.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? I'd just like to clarify a point, Councillor Milne. The discussions around moving from outside the building or inside the building to outside the building were presented and agreed to by council before the change was signed off with the owner to the construction. So.
Yeah, but we had a point, Mr Mayor, that we did actually on several occasions discuss the inside, and we had given the CEO at the time instructions to negotiate those for inside, but then unfortunately it was changed. So it's just disappointing because the inside the building would have been a prime location, and that was the original intent.
We all agreed to outside.
I know. I said I was disappointed.
Okay, let's move on. Councillor Stewart, you close?
Nothing further to add, thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.5, the procurement panel. Hand over again to Mr Lewis. Ms Hatherall.
Mr Mayor and councillors, this is our regular reports again. This is specifically in relation to procurement and to provide you with updates of the activities within the procurement space. And I'll hand over to Mr Harrop.
Morning, Mr Mayor. Morning, councillors. Through you, Mr Mayor. Before you is the procurement report. Details procurement activity that has been undertaken and reports that have gone to ELT that were within the financial delegations of ELT. Before you today is seeking council resolution, procurement activity T104, the provision of cleaning services to various building categories for approval. The recommendation there is to appoint 2 suppliers one under separable portion 1 and the remaining separable portions to 1 supplier. So two suppliers are there before you. I'll take the report as read. Open to any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Smith?
Before the last cleaning contract, we used to have some mum and dads cleaning for us out west and that sort of thing. Are they still able to put in quotes for this sort of work, or is that ruled out now? Because I notice now that it's all companies, no individuals at all.
Yeah, bring forth Peter, who's been the author and the chair of the procurement panel.
So the question is in relation to what opportunities were provided for the local cleaners. So we broke this cleaning tender up into separable portions, and to provide to maximise any opportunity for local cleaners, we created separable portions in the outer geographic areas such as the coast and the valley, etc. So cleaners that were resident in those areas had an opportunity to submit quotations for those separable portions. And also to further encourage, a local benefit, we also increased that percentage of the non-pricing score to 15%.
I just used to notice that the locals sort of gave us a bit of service. They were in the area, they could notice when something needed doing, they could do it, but it just worked better. What qualifications do they need to actually be able to tender for the service?
They've got to meet the mandatory criteria, and then they've obviously got to submit a proposal and be evaluated against other cleaners. So again, we provided separable portions as a way of providing local opportunity, and we've obviously got that factored into the scoring matrix as well. So the outcome was that in those outer areas, when it came to public amenity cleaning, we had one dominant submission, and that the scores were the way they were, and that is currently the incumbent cleaner for public amenities, and that cleaner is using local cleaners, I'm of the understanding.
For you, Mr Mayor, I suppose the way that, as you've just mentioned, the main supplier could utilise potential of local smaller suppliers to deliver the services.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Smith?
I also noticed we're putting in a quote for a waste shredder. Are we still going to get a report on the...
Yeah, so that is to inform you of the process that is current, which is that the proposal, the tender went out to market and was received back. That is currently on hold pending the ongoing discussion, which is being brought back to council, I believe, at the next workshop. Yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation one there before us, that council resolves to receive and note the minutes of the procurement panel meetings, number 89, number 90, 86 and 91. Someone to move? No rush. Councillor Milne, Councillor Smearton second. Councillor Milne to speak.
Oh, we're just receiving and noting the minutes. It's something we're getting every meeting. It's really good to see what's actually going behind the scenes in procurement, because it was one of those areas, I say it every time. So I'm happy to receive a note. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Councillor Smearton.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I agree with that. It's something we didn't get to last council, and it's something that's been this term, and I think it's a good thing for council to get a bit of an insight into where we're going and what tenders we're putting out, and it's good to see.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne to close.
Nothing further to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote on recommendation 1. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Recommendation 2, that we resolve to award the contract for cleaning services as per the discussion. To surprise us for 3 years fixed term contract with options for 2 or 12 months extensions at council sole discretion. Someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second? Councillor Milne? Councillor Stewart to speak.
I know probably about 4 or 5 years ago we were getting quite a lot of complaints about the standard of public toilets and such like, and they seem to have disappeared, which is a good sign. So maybe this company who we contracting are doing the right thing. So yep, quite happy to move.
Councillor Milne?
Oh, we need things cleaned. I'm a cleaner. It's a great job to do. When we do these and they do come up, I do know about the mum and dad type of thing. I was a mum and dad contract at the council, but then when you look at the actual procurement process itself, it is quite cumbersome for them, and I can see why companies are more likely to get their primary contract and stuff like that. But yeah, it goes through the process. We trust the process. I'm happy to award what's been recommended here for those terms put before us. So thank you.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
So to go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.6 MOU with USC. Hand over to Mr Lewis, Mr George.
Morning again, Mr Mayor and councillors. This report before you today was workshopped in March, early March, and the recommendation basically just points to us in conjunction with UniSC forming a committee to explore the possibility of progressing a formal relationship with the university moving forward. Happy to take the rest of it.
Any questions, councillors? No questions? We have a recommendation there before us. I know we've workshopped this a couple of times. Councillor Fredman to move, someone to second. Councillor Polly, Councillor Fredman to speak.
Mr Mayor, we don't have enough professionals in Australia, let alone Queensland, let alone Gympie, and it's affecting the performance of our organisation. We can't get enough professionals to do the job where special skills are needed. So anything that assists in the development of these young people into the sort of professionals who can fill our ranks, the better. I do hope that the university does concentrate on the professions where there is a significant deficiency. I notice here that they're quite proud of the fact they've worked with the Sunshine Coast Council on the kangaroo genetics, much as I'm sure it's a great thing, kangaroo genetics. Perhaps for us, they could do research on flying fox genetics, Mr Mayor. It would be much more relevant to our region. And that's not insulting flying foxes. The other thing I noticed in the partnership agreement, it refers to it would be useful if council were to offer a bursary for accommodation to encourage students from Moreton Bay or Sunshine Coast campuses to undertake basically their employment experience with Gympie region. If I can just make a comment, I would sincerely hope that we can get students who are based in this region first and foremost, rather than, as suggested, offer bursaries to students from Moreton Bay or Sunshine Coast. I don't know who ultimately makes that decision on whether we do offer a bursary, but I'm sure it comes to council and I'm sure there'd be a fair bit of debate. We have plenty of young people in our region. We need more of them to become professionals. That means more of them going to university and completing their course so that ultimately they can be of assistance in managing our organisation. Very happy to move this motion.
Councillor Polly.
Mr Mayor, sorry, technicality, I just realised I have a business contract with University of Sunshine Coast and I wonder whether I should withdraw my seconding of the motion. I'm happy to second it, but I realise I do have a contract with them. I don't want to be a conflict of interest.
But this recommendation, I appreciate you bringing it up, this recommendation has no financial benefit to you or anyone else in the room. It's simply progressing a process of developing a memorandum of understanding that will come back to council through the debate. Is it for bus services? Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yes.
No, the contract is there. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, yes. And knowing the quality of the output of the students and staff at UniSC, I'm just very appreciative to see that council can enter into a relationship with them and glean some of the quality that they do, and it'll benefit council overall. I know it will, so I'm happy to second the motion.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Now the speakers for. Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to clarify a point with Councillor Fredman, if I can. You stated to become a professional you have to go to university, is that correct?
Traditional word of professional is a tertiary qualification.
Okay. I just thought that he could become a professional without actually going in, but anyway, that's what I clarified.
I'd have to take that on notice, and I don't have a dictionary on me, Councillor Smurden, but perhaps the Mayor could get back to you on that point.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Fredman to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.7. Community grants funding recommendation. I'll hand over to Mr Lewis and Mr Doyne again. I'm sure councillors are aware there has been a change to this recommendation. I will let Mr. Norton minister through that.
Just by, sorry, Mr. Jennings, just by way of background, Mr. Mayor and councillors, the events team in conjunction with the community development team have been liaising with the committee of the Kilkevin Great Horse Ride for a little while now. The committee successfully submitted a grant application under the community grants program at the end of last week, but after that grant was deliberated on and processed through the independent internal panel, the committee came back through to the organisation with some extra funding requirements. Those funding requirements were deemed ineligible under the grant guidelines, and they were around insurance and those sort of things. So we've come back to you today with some updated recommendations for your consideration.
Any questions, councillors? Are you looking for all recommendations to be endorsed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies for the crude scribble with the sheet that was done late last night.
I can't even read it anyway.
Yeah. Part of the ploy, councillor.
Should have been a professional doctor.
As compared.
This is a separate time for the rest of the meeting.
Any questions out of that, councillors? I think the overarching principle is that we had a budget allocation for the horse ride.
Yeah.
And there was, because of the nature of the way that it originally was off and the committee has got together to put it back on, they don't meet the criteria of the grand guidelines, and staff are just looking for some direction from council to utilise the budget allocation that was there. Councillor Miller?
Just clarifying that, so there is actually within the current budget that we've got this year, this is actually allocated in there. It doesn't have to be, because I know we're very oversubscribed for our events and stuff like that. I'm just clarifying
Yeah,
that.
through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Jensen, yeah, there is an individual line item Councillor Milne, sorry. There is an individual line item for the $20,000 to be allocated to the committee.
Awesome.
Sorry, Councillor Jensen.
Any other questions, councillors? We have, Councillor Smith? No? He's quick off the mark.
I'm trying to be the professional council president.
We'll deal with each recommendation separately. We have recommendation 1. There's someone to move. Councillor Smurden, Councillor Devereux to second. Councillor Smurden to speak.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Daunt and co on discussing this with the horse ride. It's good. It's great to see the horse ride going ahead. It did look a little bit dubious there at one stage, and I was a little bit worried that it might have been going to an extinction, but they've got a new committee, a keen committee that's really pushing ahead and doing a good job from what I can see. So, congratulations to them on achieving that.
Councillor Devereux.
Thank you, Mayor Hartwig. I'm happy to second. I love your division, Hilary Smurden. I've spent a lot of time out there talking to people. Anything we can do to help that division through what will be a rough period ahead, I think is fantastic. And I love getting people out there for like the Canary Pumpkin Festival, things like this. They've got a real sense of community out there, and I'd be proud of them. You can be proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smurden to close.
Thank you, Councillor Devereux, on those kind words. It's good to know that. But yeah, I'm happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote on recommendation 1. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2. Someone to move. Councillor Smurden. Councillor Jensen to second.
Again,
Councillor Smurden to speak.
sorry. Again, Mr. Daunt, they really need that 20,000 to achieve what they want to achieve this year. So I'm happy that we resolve those issues and pushing ahead with that grant. Thank you.
Councillor Jensen.
It's a great event, so I'm happy to see council supporting that, and like I said, the 20 is needed, so I support that.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smurden to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm hoping it'll be a good event for the area. It's a little bit quick in the planning and getting it on, but like I said, they're doing a great job. Been to a few meetings, and the new committee are very keen and pushing ahead. So I'm hoping it'll be a really good event. Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And we have recommendation 3 there, which sort of puts some qualifications around the acquittal of the funds. Councillor Smerd to move, Councillor Stewart second. Councillor Smerd to speak.
It's a bit of an involved process, this, but anyway, we'll get there and yeah, as I was reiterate what I said before, so happy to make.
Councillor Stewart.
The conditions are pretty standard, actually. They're not really special conditions. Every group that applies for funding really should put forward a budget and show they've got public liability insurance, so they're not special conditions, they're just the normal. So I'm happy to move.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devereux.
Mayor Hartwig, can I ask a question on that recommendation? A very basic one. We've done this before, are you happy for that? Speaking about the standard recommendations, the $1,000 where they have to provide, what is it?
Quotes.
Yeah, quotes. That is standard. Do we do that for the muster as well?
I'd have to take that on notice, Councillor Devereux.
Thank you.
That on notice, yeah. The muster has a slightly different arrangement through. It's not done.
Thought they might.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Smerd to close.
Happy to move, thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote on recommendation 3. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.8, main agenda item. Shouldn't have been the main agenda item. Notified motion from Councillor Devereux. I'll hand over to Councillor Devereux.
Thank you, Mayor Hartwig. Just grab it. Okay, so it's fairly self-explanatory. Let's get to my notes. It's fairly self-explanatory. At the moment, we're operating under a motion that was brought to council 2 elected councils ago. I don't know what the circumstances were, but I dare say there was a reason for it. I haven't finished. Just
I was going to say, if you'd like to know the circumstances, where I can tell you.
I
It's in the
would
report.
like to finish my. Yeah, then you can ask whatever you like or comment. So the fact is, so we acted on a motion from 2014. I'm not sure that we were told that it was a motion from 2014 at the time. I thought we were just acting under the legislation. The motion is about ensuring future elected councils aren't similarly encumbered, and this motion is about councils retrieving the responsibilities to decide collectively who heads the organisation, even in an acting capacity. I have made, in the recommendation in the motion that I've recommended, allowance for obvious things like holidays or sickness or what have you. I'm happy to hear any ideas people have on it. And, yeah, open it up.
I just have a question, Councillor Devereux. You said we've been acting under this delegation. On the 2 occasions that we've appointed an acting CEO, it has been brought to council, and councillors have voted on both of those occasions. So I'm just
voted on who was going to take that position.
You voted on who was going to take those positions.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to understand the context of your statement that we've been acting under that delegation when, on both occasions, the appointment of an acting CEO in the first instance has been brought to council for consideration.
We voted on.
I've got the minutes from both meetings.
Okay, can I have a look at them, please?
So there
I
would.
don't understand why this didn't come to me earlier. I did announce that I was going to do this fairly early on, and I did say I would like to talk to people So I don't understand why.
Yes, you were present at the meeting and.
No. That's a bit of a cop out, respectfully.
Sorry.
I wanted
It's not a
discussion
cop
on
out,
it.
Councillor Devereux.
Oh, yeah,
They've warned once already about making sure your comments are appropriate standard for our chamber, and I think.
If you want to kick me out, I'm more than happy to walk.
Councillor Devereux, that is typical of your conduct.
Yeah.
There is a standard and an expectation. We have a good group of people here. Yes, we do get jovial and we do have some fun and we keep it as light, but we also keep it professional.
Mm.
And I think it's important that your suggestion that was a cop out from my explanation is you have a copy of those minutes just like everyone else. Please. Just like everyone else, because you were an attending councillor at those meetings. So to suggest that it was a cop out, that my statement was that you A, attended, B, voted, and C, had a copy of those minutes, I think is a little bit harsh and unfair and improper.
Mm.
Councillor Milne?
Just referring back to what I was going to state before, Councillor Devereux did mention that he didn't understand the circumstances of why the motion was made in 2014. I did read the report. There was actually a standing delegation that a certain director was to take on the acting CEO role at that time, forever be vacant for holiday sickness, whatever it is. Our organisation needs a leader at all times. To be without that CEO position puts a major organisational risk. Unfortunately, that director was retiring. So the suggestion was, and it did give a list of all the conditions under the Act or the legislation, I assume it's still current, of what they could do. And they did delegate, as by this motion, to the Mayor, which I thought, after reading it all, was probably the best way to keep continuum in an organisation, was probably the most logical. Don't know the conversation at the time, didn't have live streaming, it's not recorded. When we look at what's been put before us now, and even in the history, I did look it up, there's been 3 instances of acting CEOs, and one, even by this recommendation here, you could have done on your own, which was Scott Mason, which actually was brought to council. I couldn't find an example at all in this term of council where acting CEOs had not been brought back to us and voted upon, which I found very respectful. Knowing this delegation now, I'm like, well, you didn't actually have to do that, you could have just done it. But so thank you for keeping us all informed and being allowed to make those decisions. The concerning part I've got here is I'm not sure what benefit this proposal is actually going to bring either the community or the organisation coming to us to decide on, because I believe the system we've got now has been well respected. So that's my question is what benefit is this actually bringing to us?
Okay, so can I answer that? I do have a question on notice that I was going to put forward. I'm happy to withdraw the motion, and I think that's fine if everyone wants to do that. Is everyone happy with that? Question on notice. We've been told that it's up to the CEO, the Mayor, to decide when we go out to market for a new CEO to fulfil the position when we've got an acting CEO. Is that, I'll just get to the question if that's okay, is that a similar local motion in the past, or is it legislated that the Mayor has that power?
So through you, Mr Mayor, my understanding is the legislation and the delegation that's to the Mayor is to appoint a CEO. Part of appointing CEO in a process is to commence proceedings of recruitment. That would be part of that job in appointing, but whether or not the consultation occurs with council would be up to the Mayor, because ultimately if the delegation is passed to the Mayor, it's about appointing. To start appointment, you need to commence a recruitment process.
Yes. So that is...
I dare say that it would be consultation, or it would be up to the council when that recruitment would commence, but I can take that on notice as well.
If you would,
because it is a definition of the Mayor may appoint as a power, but to enable him to do that, he would have to commence a recruitment process. So I will get clarification on that for council.
Thank you very much.
Through Mr Mayor, I think the Act's fairly clear on the position. the mayor must appoint a CEO, council must appoint a CEO, and if the CEO is vacant, they must appoint an acting CEO for the position of the vacancy. It's silent on how they go about recruitment.
Yeah, the silent part is what you're, like, to me, it's about how the mayor goes around.
Well, we were told that it was specifically the mayor's role to do it.
It is, that's right. But you were talking more about the recruitment process that precedes that appointment.
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of time frame. Like over a year with an acting CEO is something as I've made very public, something I was very stressed with for the organisation, very upset about. Actually, I won't withdraw the motion. I will still say that we should at least get to the point where that motion is. We make it clear that we're not going to act under it.
I have some concerns about the recommendation, and I think there was probably something in the 2014 delegation that may not have been put in the report. I think firstly is I've always treated this group with respect, and I've always engaged in relation to the appointment of an acting CEO, and well aware of the concerns you had with the extended appointment of an acting CEO. But what you haven't said, Councillor Devro, is that all councillors were discussed and the majority of councillors were comfortable with the process that we undertook. Now, I accept that you weren't happy with that, but as we talked about during that process, it's democracy and the majority were happy with the process. In terms of councillors being involved in the appointment of an acting CEO, there's a lot that that councillors don't see in terms of the directors. There's a lot of, you may be looking to appoint a director that is currently under investigation, currently under disciplinary process, or currently under a performance management process as the acting CEO, and you will not be aware and you will not be made aware of those circumstances. And, if they were under investigation and they were privy as acting CEO to documents that related to that investigation, they may tarnish the investigation and inhibit the ability of a due process occurring. So, whilst I've always treated the group with respect in bringing matters of an acting CEO appointment to them, I understand why that delegation is there. And I think there is good reason for that delegation, and I don't know how you can in any way apply something else that would deal with the issues that I've raised. And I think the other concern that I've seen is that it's not uncommon for directors and councils to create particular relationships and push someone's barrow, and that's concern. I think the process that is there, providing things are open and done up front and councillors are involved, then there is enough transparency to ensure that it's appropriate in the way that it's administered. But going to the recommendation here, particularly recommendation to create some massive problems in terms of staffing matters that may involve the executive. Councillor Milne is first, and Councillor Devro.
Just saying that you'd like to go with recommendation one as clarification on the Act as it stands. Unless there is that appointment made, then if there was a vacation of the CEO, we would have to emergency meet because we must appoint an acting CEO, and if without that delegation, then council must meet and appoint pretty much instantaneously. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's correct under section 195 of the Act.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if our special meetings have a period of time, a number of days' notice, so I don't know whether we can comply with that under our current standing orders. Unless there's provisions to allow, an emergency meeting, which I haven't noticed in the standing orders. Councillor Devro?
Thank you. Again, what do other councillors do then? Do they have a motion that's been voted on, such as the one in 2014?
Through you, Mr Mayor, all councils have the legislation, however they administer their council is up to each council. So you can't really compare or benchmark against any other council. We have different categories of councils, so it's whatever is relevant for this council and for this group to decide.
We often benchmark against other councils, though.
Not in relation to, like, it depends on, it depends. The benchmarking is usually on fees or service delivery.
I think Councillor Devereux is trying to get an understanding of how do other councils deal with this sort of issue, to see whether there's some system that they may have that may meet his needs but still allow council to operate and comply with the legislation. Councillor Mill? Oh, finished? Okay.
I was just on that subject, that's all.
Okay. I just want to respond to what you said before, because I didn't get the opportunity, if I could. I understand how we work as a democracy. I understand that the group thought a certain way. I never said that that was a point of contention. What I said was I didn't agree with the group, and I'm allowed to do that as long as that's my personal opinion on the matter. And I've been clear on that the whole way through too. Thank you.
Councillor Mill?
I'm just going back to the 2014 report. I just have to find where it actually is. So under this one, it just actually gives about 5 options. So I just don't know if it's giving an understanding. It was, I don't know if it's still current. Required appointment made by council resolution by the normal meeting process. It was authorised a qualified person, like an act, to automatically assume, which was the standing at the time, which was a director. So I think they had that system in place. Delegate authority to the CEO or delegate it to the mayor, or make a delegation by those two with a special condition. So I don't know if that's still current, but that was in the 2014 recommendation. So I can see why they've picked to the mayor. So it's the CEO can't just pick someone, buddy, and the mayor has obviously got the information required to do that and can do that on the spot. So I can see why.
Councillor Devereux?
I think I would be more comfortable anyway, just operating under the legislation, under the Act.
We have to pick one.
That's what it's for.
In terms of recommendation 1?
Yes.
But then how do you, so then you would change the standing orders as well?
The Act is there for us to behave.
I know, but under our standing orders which govern how meetings are conducted and called, the special meeting has to have a number of days from when it is notification occurs to when we actually attend.
And
the
that's
appointment
my
of
point too.
The appointment of an acting CEO would have no CEO for a period of time, and we couldn't actually comply with it.
Point 2 gives you total authority to put someone in the meantime. That was the whole idea.
So how do you deal with the issues around staffing and the like in the event that you want to be involved in appointing an acting CEO for longer than 2 months?
Yeah.
How do we deal with, let's say, the person, the executive that you want is currently on part of a disciplinary process or something of the like? How do you overcome that?
Well, I guess you'll have to give us some sort of an indication that that's not possible to do. I mean, we're allowed to talk about these things. Yeah. I just think that in a democracy where our job, our responsibility is to put the person who is in charge of the organisation, which is direction, which is, they are council as it is. Our responses, our votes are very much on the recommendations that come to us. We can tweak or what have you. We can say no.
But how can
that is the most important position. With all due respect, more important than mayor. We have our role, but as far as the organisation's concerned, that's it. So I just think that what we want to do is cement our role in making sure that if it goes for another year, that we decide who.
Well, Councillor, you have. History has shown that council did decide on that appointment. And the second thing is you are asking council to breach breach regulations because you want to discuss staffing issues in an open forum, and the appointment of an acting CEO is done in open council.
So if there is an issue with one of the directors that you asked to be informed of that you'd like to be talking about, then we
went
can't
into
do that in open meeting.
We went into committee.
We didn't because there was a staffing matter to discuss.
If we go into committee whenever there's something that could be of personal nature or bring up that thing. That's not a big issue.
I'd like to check with the CEO. Is there a legislative restriction on councillors being made aware of matters pertaining to directors' performance or the like?
It's not ideal. I don't think there's a legislative restriction, but it's not ideal to reveal the confidence of individual matters happening with staff members. That would be inappropriate.
I would argue that it is
sure of
more.
that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I would argue. I'm happy to lay this on the table if you like, and further refine it. I would argue that it's more important that the organisation has that we have a say in who that role is and so forth, and that it's clear, because the next council, it has to be clear for them. We're setting up the next lot of people now. This isn't about us.
But if it's not about us, then let the next council decide.
No. We're setting it up so that there's any little hurdles that we see are gone. Council, it just goes, it doesn't start again. They have to rely on the previous council to have not put any hurdles in the way.
Councillor Jensen?
I do agree with the time frame. I think we should put a time frame on, and I know because I've been part of the process that it doesn't just happen overnight like that. And I think 2 months might be a little bit unrealistic, but I would like to see that we went through a period of time where nearly everyone was acting, and we really got a lashing for that, and it wasn't good for the organisation, because you need that stability for your staff to have firm people in their roles. It's good for the culture to not have the juggling at the top. So I'd like to see a time frame put on. You've involved us in choosing your acting and all that, but I'd like to see a time frame so next time it doesn't take 12 months or whatever long it was.
Do you have sorry, what was the?
3 months, I think, would be.
I'm happy to change it to 3 months.
And you could change it for maybe 3 to 4 months or something like that, because you can't fill it straight away.
I'm happy to change it to 4 months. That's fine.
So Councillor Devereux, I believe, is making an alteration to his recommendation too.
So is that good? That's what I'm going to contemplate. I'd like to move that now, and I will spend the next month discussing it with our governments.
So you'd like this matter to lay on the table with your councillor?
As of now, that would be fine.
Councillor Devereux has moved this matter lay on the table. Is there any further discussion from councillors in relation to it? No. And you would like extra information on?
I will talk to governance about it, and
well, no, we
I've got a
actually,
question
as part
on
of the
those.
meeting process to lay a matter on the table, it needs to be in relation to extra information.
I've got a question on those. Sorry? Sorry? Vote on. Oh, look. If you'd like to vote on that, I just think that this is something we want to get right.
You've moved a recommendation that the matter lay on the table. We just need to detail what extra information that council needs, so that can be brought back at the earliest possible opportunity.
So I wish to investigate further with government in terms of the legislation. With a view to, that'll do.
So you'd like some legal advice in relation to information related to staff members' performance and council access?
Legal advice in regards to the legislation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just so I'm clear, the questions on notice that I had was to provide legal advice on the section in relation to the proceedings of the recruitment.
Yes.
This, as it's lay silent. The second one is not benchmarking, but seeing what other councillors do and provide information back to you.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
There was a tertiary question as well through the chair, whether individual officers' HR matters can be brought to council.
Yes.
And I guess that will be what happens with other councils and how they get around that issue. Thank you, everyone.
We clear, councillors, on the recommendations here that Matt lay on the table. Is there any further comment or in relation to the recommendation that we have there? No further discussion. Councillor Devereux to close.
Oh, no, I'm happy. Go to that.
We have a recommendation that this matter lay on the table. All those in favour? Hold on. Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Baldock, Councillor Smoot, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Devereux. Against? Councillor Fredman, Councillor Milne. The recommendation is successful. This matter will lay on the table. We may break now for coffee and tea and have a chat with Gary. Thank you for your attendance before we deal with our committee matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Infrastructure Supervisor.
The meeting's been booked at
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
So something else is coming up, we don't know about it.
anything?
It's 15, 14, 13. Push your hair.
17.
Look, the back of your head. Show me the back of your head, Estelle.
Get up the anxiety.
No, you just go show me the back of your head, you're looking fine. That's all you've got.
It's here that worrying about.
Oh, you present?
Welcome back, councillors and staff. We'll continue with our meeting. We had another 2 items in open council. Item 8.1, proposed lease renewal for Gympie District Land Care Group. I'll hand over to Ms Cummings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. The report before you is for the renewal of lease for Gympie District Land Care Group. Landcare have, been an organisation that's been in operation for quite some time. They provide a valuable community service to local landowners. The lease will expire in a couple of days. Landcare have advised us that they will be potentially looking for bigger premises down the track, but in the interim, this certainly, satisfies their needs for what they're currently doing. So I have the recommendation there before you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Process.
Straightforward.
You've got one, councillor?
No, sounds good.
If we don't have any questions, councillors, do we want to deal with the recommendations separately? Or as one lot? Recommendation 1 and then recommendation 2?
I think that's how we've been doing it, isn't it?
Not personally,
on the procurement ones, we have been dealing with them separately, but if council's happy to deal with them as a one complete lot, happy with that. What would we prefer?
One thing.
You want to do one at a time?
No, whole thing together. Yep. One thing.
That's one whole lot. Okay. So there we have 2 recommendations there, councillors, in relation to the lease. Is there someone to move? Truth, now there.
Must be getting close to lunch.
It was a 3-way.
That's everybody. It's all everyone.
Totally gone. You were number 4. Oh no, 4. Sorry, you realise. I was going to know.
Councillor Smurden and Councillor Jensen, second. Councillor Smurden, speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think they do a really good job for the local community. I've been there a number of times and they do training and everything, so it's a good organisation and it should be looked after by council, so I'm happy to move.
Councillor Jensen.
What Councillor Snowden said, with sugar on top, a bit nicer. No, Landcare do a great job and happy to support.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Mills.
I'd just like to support that Gympie Landcare do quite a good job in the Gympie region. You did say they're valuable, I say they're invaluable, and some of the services they provide is quite unique to here, and I do hope that they can be facilitated in finding some bigger premises, but in the meantime, these premises will do them, and I'm happy to supply them.
I know, and I'm sure Councillor Jensen and Councillor Melvin and Stewart are aware of the work that they did with RACQ and the Manidi Group just last week to do some wonderful work down on the sands. So yeah, tremendous organisation. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Spurgeon to close.
Happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.2. For you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, Bern.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, councillors, we'll take this report as largely being read, but just in quick summary, this is probably an opportunity to formalise the processes and procedures around and the policies around our leasing terms. It actually gets clarity and better defines the whole position from a council perspective for yourselves and also for the public. So I'll just ask Ms Cummings any key points that she'd like to make in reference to this report.
No, I don't believe so. Had a look at this at the May workshop meeting and still stand by, my comments in the report that I think it just provides staff with a tool to, treat everyone fair and equitably and gives us clear direction.
Any questions, councillors? No, if we have a recommendation there for us, is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Smurden, Councillor Stewart speak.
I certainly agree, Mr Mayor, that this provides good guidance to staff. A lot of things in here have already gone into lease agreements, but now it's absolutely clear that that's the direction we want to give. I do like that it helps to lay out the rights and responsibilities of both council and of leasees. It's just not a free gift from council or cheap land from council. There's certain responsibilities on either side, and so I'm happy with the policies. So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, it just formalises the process that we've had for a number of years that hasn't really been formal. So yeah, I'm happy to say.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Is that for or against? Sorry, Councillor. For?
For.
Yep, for. Councillor Deborah?
I'd just like to make the comment, the best sentence, I think, in the entire lot of documents is council recognises and is committed to meeting the needs of the community organisations to have access to council-owned and controlled land or controlled land through appropriate and consistent tenure arrangements. I just think it's fantastic that we're actually setting in stone that sort of an attitude. It'll serve the region well. Thank you.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
That we have, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. And that concludes our list of items for our open council. We have one item in committee to deal with. One, actually 2. So is there someone to move that we go in committee? Councillor Smoon to move, someone to second? Councillor Mill. All those in favour?
Councillor Jesson must have Indigenous to encourage it, to get some engagement.
Bruce, as well as the who, it's the where also. So the area around Caboolture was claimed also by the Torval people. In fact, Torval Point is near Caboolture, and yet it's in Rockwater.
Councillors, we have a recommendation that before us, moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Jensen. All those in favour? Councillor Jensen? Against? Carried, thank you. Item 11.2, we have a recommendation there, moved Councillor Stewart, seconded Councillor Milne. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. That concludes our meeting for today. Thank you for your attendance.
Special, no other meetings, no other.
Mr Mayor, could you give us an update on the Rattler? Never ending saga.
Different meeting. That'd be the CEO giving us.
There's an update in the report. Yep. I spoke to Linda last week when I was up there. They were waiting.
Confirm.
A report to come back.
We're just waiting for the live stream, just to make sure that it's ended.